Well, hello and welcome once again to my channel and the part 4 and the final part of the reading of this lovely book, As a Man Thinketh. Wow. Um, it's been really exciting for me to go through this book yet again and just to it's a constant reminder of how important it is to think consciously, to get control of your mind. Um, and so far we've looked at how thought affects character, and then we looked at how thought affects circumstances and health and purpose. And today we're going to look at how it affects our achievements. So it's about having your goals set and met through thoughts, and then we're going to complete with visions and ideals and serenity. But you're in for a treat. He just finishes this book so beautifully, and I just love it. So now, if you have missed out on the previous recordings, they're still available, and the link is in the description box. And they're always there for you to revisit as often as you'd like. So let's have a look at this, the thought factor in achievements. How have you been going with have you been able to start to pay more attention to your thinking? One of my thoughts this morning was, and I think it's really, really relevant, when this book was written in 1902, there wasn't a possibility for the elite, as we call them now, to reach the masses like they can today. There was no radio. There was no, there was, I think, only very basic phone connection, if any. And then, on and on we go. We didn't have television, and have a look at where we live now. So when I look back in the early years of my life, my parents had a tiny little radio set because, of course, it was forbidden, and it was during the occupation time in Holland by the Nazis. And I remember they had it hidden in a panel, behind a panel, in one of the bedside tables in my parents' bedroom. And every night, because I remember the Queen, then Queen Wilhelmina, I had escaped to the UK, and every night she would have this broadcast to the people of the country. And then sometimes some of the neighbors or other people from the underground would crawl on their bellies at the risk of death to come, and they'd all huddle around this little box to hear this broadcast. And so that is sort of the first times that people were being reached from the masses. When you look at it today, and so the true mind control and programming that that we've been exposed to has really come only in the later years. Well, later for me, earlier for you. And and it's quite fascinating, because that is what we are now recovering, right? And reprogramming. And so, even though what all this is very relevant, what he's talking about, what he was not experiencing at his days was the conditioning and the programming that now many generations since have had put upon them. So let's have a look at how thought can assist us in achieving what we would like to achieve. The thought factor in achievement. All that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his own thoughts. In a justly ordered universe where loss of equipoise, I looked it up and it's still in the dictionary, it means equilibrium, would mean total destruction. So when you didn't keep yourself in a state of equilibrium, it would mean total destruction. Individual responsibility must be absolute. And isn't that where we're at today, is to regain our sovereignty, to reclaim autonomy? I wrote about it this morning on my Facebook page. A man's weakness and strengths, purity and impurity, are his own and not another man's. They are brought about by himself and not by another, and they can only be altered by himself, never by another. And that is what brought that thought to me, that in his days that was true. But in our days, and certainly my children's and your children's, we were impregnated with other people's thoughts all the time. And it isn't until you stop taking on board other people's thoughts as truth and you start to have critical thinking and thinking that is in alignment with your own frequency and your own soul knowing, that you can move out of that matrix. His condition is also his own and not another man's. His suffering and his happiness are evolved from within. And that is true. That is what we're now starting to learn as we become more and more empowered. As he thinks, so he is. That's very true. And therefore, if someone else is controlling your thinking, which is what happens through our education system, when you look at it, we're constantly programmed through television and through our phones. I walk down the street and everybody's either got what this or they're doing that, and there's constant programming going into you that comes from elsewhere. As he continues to think, so he remains. There's a thought. A strong man cannot help a weaker man unless that weaker is willing to be helped. And even then, the weak man must become strong of himself. He must, by his own efforts, develop the strength which he admires in another. None but himself can alter his condition. And this is very much about, God helps those who help themselves. You cannot force someone else to change. You can't force someone else to upgrade if they're stuck in that, in what I call that tram line of programming. There has to be something in their life that suddenly, it's usually a crisis, that they say, well, there's got to be something better than this, or something in me needs to change. And that's when it all happens. It has been usual for men to think and to say, many men are slaves because one is an oppressor. Let us hate the oppressor. Now, however, there is amongst an increasing few a tendency to reverse this judgment and to say, one man is an oppressor because many are slaves. Let us despise the slaves. Well, let us not do either, okay, because we've become slaves because of our apathy and our ignorance of controlling our mind and feeling that we have the power to do so. The truth is that oppressor and slave are cooperators in ignorance, and while seeming to afflict each other, are in reality afflicting themselves. And we've seen that in the last few years, where people have just acquiesced, just complied with whatever they were told to do, and then started to point the finger at who was doing it to them. But if you said yes, then you did it. And that is hard to accept in yourself, isn't it? That, why did I do that? Well, that question's useless. If you did or you didn't, you are where you are. And now is as good a time as any to start making a change for the better. A perfect knowledge perceives the action of law in the weakness of the oppressed and the misapplied power of the oppressor. A perfect love, seeing the suffering which both states entail, condemns neither. A perfect compassion embraces both oppressor and oppressed. And that's what I was talking about then. He who has conquered weakness and has put away all selfish thoughts belongs neither to oppressor nor oppressed. He is free. A man can only rise, conquer, and achieve by lifting up his thoughts. He can only remain weak and abject and miserable by refusing to lift up his thoughts. How many times, and I know I've had pity parties, How many times do we sink into complaining, sink into our misery, have our pity party, feel victimed by some situation outside of ourselves? And of course, that just takes us further and further down. Before a man can achieve anything, even in worldly things, he must lift his thoughts above slavish animal indulgence. He must not, in order to succeed, give up all animality and selfishness by any means, but a portion of it must at least be sacrificed. A man whose first thought is bestial indulgence could neither think clearly nor plan methodically. Excuse me. He could not find and develop his latest resources and would fall in any undertaking. Not having commenced to manfully control his thoughts, he is not in a position to control affairs and to adopt serious responsibilities. He is not fit to act independently and stand alone, but he is limited only by the thoughts which he chooses. And in that lies the power. It is like a secret key that it's our thinking that takes us either into a higher frequency or into a lower frequency. And nobody, when once you actually know that, then you are master of your thoughts. You do not allow another in there. But to get there, we need to clean out the old stuff that's got caught, and that's what we've been talking about all the time. There can be no progress, no achievement without sacrifice. And a man's worldly success will be in the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thoughts and fixes his mind on the development of his plans and the strengthening of his resolution and self-reliance. And the higher he lifts his thoughts, the more manly, upright, and righteous he becomes, the greater will be his success, the more blessed and enduring will be his achievements. The universe does not favor the greedy, the dishonest, the vicious, although on the mere surface it may sometimes appear to do so. It helps the honest, the magnanimous, the virtuous. All the great teachers of the ages have declared this in varying forms, and to prove and know it, a man has but to persist in making himself more and more virtuous by lifting up his thoughts. Intellectual achievements are the result of thought consecrated to the search for knowledge, or for the beautiful and true in life and nature. Such achievements may be sometimes connected with vanity and ambition, but they are not the outcome of those characteristics. They are the natural outgrowth of long and arduous effort and a pure and unselfish thought. Nothing is achieved without effort. And so it is the effort in thinking as well that is going to keep you on that track towards your vision, your ideal, your goal. Spiritual achievements are the consummation of holy aspiration. He who lives constantly in the conception of noble and lofty thoughts, who dwells upon all that is pure and unselfish, will, as surely as the sun reaches its zenith and the moon its full, become wise and noble in character and rise into a position of influence and blessedness. Don't you love that? Sometimes he expresses himself so beautifully and quite romantically. Achievement of whatever kind is the crown of effort, the diadem of thought. By the aid of self-control, resolution, purity, righteousness, and well-directed thought, a man ascends. By the aid of animality, indolence, impurity, corruption, and confusion of thought, a man descends. A man may rise to high success in the world and even to lofty altitudes in the spiritual realm, and again descend into weakness and wretchedness by allowing arrogant, selfish, and corrupt thoughts to take possession of him. Yeah, and that is why we have to be so diligent and vigilant about our thoughts, about the stories we run, about the way that our mind gets distracted and tempted away from where we really desire to be. Victorious Victories attained by right thought can only be maintained by watchfulness. Manly, you know, I'm stuttering because I'm actually not seeing that well. As you see, I've got a little eye thing, so you just have to excuse me. But it's coming through. I'm seeing better every day. Many give way when success is assured and rapidly fall back into failure. All achievements, whether in the business, intellectual, or spiritual world, are the result of definitely directed thought, are governed by the same law, and are of the same method. The only difference lies in the object of attainment. He who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. He who would attain highly must sacrifice greatly. And look, it's interesting because I always like to watch sport, mostly because I like to see the effort that has gone before we actually see the champion step forward. And to be a champion of anything, we need to put in effort. We need to practice. We need to be focused. We need to be single minded. We need to have an outcome in mind that we're working towards. We need to look at what do I need to put forward to be able to gain what I desire, because there is an equal exchange of energy required for everything that we desire. And that energy is produced by the thoughts we have. So vibration, low vibrational thoughts create low vibrational frequencies. High vibrational thoughts create high frequencies. It's really simple. All these universal laws are really simple. It's not so easy to remember them when you're in the thick of things. The dreamers. Now we're going into the next little. This to me is this. The ending of this book is just poetry, absolute poetry. So he talks about visions and ideals. The dreamers are the saviors of the world. How many times have we been told not to sit there and dream our life away? Or, just a daydream. Or, it's just your imagination. But that's where the wealth lives. That is the secret of tomorrow. And I just love the way that he expresses this. As the visible world is sustained by the invisible, our dreams, our desires, our visions, and lofty ideals, they are invisible when they come up, but they are the visible of the future. So, as the visible world is sustained by the invisible, so men, through all their trials and sins and sordid vocations, are nourished by the beautiful visions of their solitary dreamers. Humanity cannot forget its dreamers. It cannot let their ideals fade and die. It lives in them. It knows them as the realities which it shall one day see and know. And the realities and all the, all the beautiful things that we have at our, um, at the touch of a button. The fact that I'm talking to you on this screen, that was somebody's ideal once. That was someone's vision. It was somebody's thought, someone's dreaming. Composer, sculptor, painter, poet, prophet, sage. These are the makers of the afterworld, the architects of heaven. The world is beautiful because they have lived. Without them, laboring humanity would perish. He who cherishes a beautiful vision, a lofty ideal in his heart, will one day realize it. Columbus cherished a vision of another world, and he discovered it. Copernicus fostered the vision of a multiplicity of worlds and a wider universe, and he revealed it. Buddha beheld the vision of a spiritual world, of stainless beauty and perfect peace, and he entered into it. Cherish your visions, cherish your ideals, cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind, the loveliness that drapes your purest thoughts. For out of them will grow all delightful conditions, all heavenly environment. Of these, if you but remain true to them, your world will at last be built. And we are building, we are rebuilding a world that is not of war, that is not of separation, that is not of division, that is not of hate and anger and competition and better than. It's a world of oneness, of sharing, of collaborating, of building together with one vision. Where we go one, we go all. That is the world that we are building. To desire is to obtain, to aspire is to achieve. Don't you love that? I would have that tattooed. If I did tattoos, I would tattoo that somewhere. To desire is to obtain, to aspire is to achieve. What a phrase. Shall man's basest desires receive the fullest measure of gratification, and his purest aspirations starve for lack of sustenance? Such is not the law. Such, con- such a condition of things can never obtain, ask, and receive. Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. The greatest achievement was at first and for a time a dream. The oak sleeps in the acorn, the bird waits in the egg, and in the highest vision of the soul, a waking angel stirs. Dreams are the seedlings of realities. Isn't that beautiful? It's so poetic. It just sort of flows. I know that throughout this book there have been times where he has been really quite, severe and to the point. But in this last part, he becomes so beautifully fluid and gentle. I just love it. What a way to complete something that is so powerful and potent. Your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they shall not long remain so if you but perceive an ideal and strive to reach it. You cannot travel within and stand still without. Here is the youth. This is a story he shares with you. Here is a youth hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined to long hours in an unhealthy workshop, unschooled and lacking all the arts of refinement. but he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. He conceives of, mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scopes takes possession of him. Unrest urges him to action, and he utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of his latent powers and resources. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunities which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full grown man. We find him a master of certain forces of the mind which he wields with worldwide influence and almost unequaled power. In his hands, he holds the cords of gigantic responsibilities. He speaks, and lo, lives are changed. Men and women hang upon his words and remold their characters. And sun-like, he becomes the fixed and luminous center round which innumerable destinies revolve. He has realized the vision of his youth. He has become one with his ideal. And you too, useful reader, will realize the vision, not the idle wish, of your heart, be it base or beautiful, or a mixture of both. For you will always gravitate towards that which you secretly most love. In your hands will be placed the exact result of your own thoughts. You will receive that which you earn, no more, no less. Whatever your present environment may be, you will fall, remain, or rise with your thoughts, your vision, your ideal. You will become as small as your controlling desire, as great as your dominant aspiration. In the beautiful world of Stanton Kirkham Davis, you may be keeping accounts, and presently you shall walk out of the door that for so long has seemed to you the barrier of your ideals, and shall find yourself before an audience, the pen still behind your ear, the ink stains on your fingers, and then and there shall pour out the torrent of your inspiration. That's so true, because if you could have told me years ago that I would write, that I actually would publish books, that I would actually get up every morning at 5 to 5:30 and start writing day after day after day for people to read, I would have laughed, because that was not anywhere inside of me. Well, I didn't think, until there was a day that suddenly there was something in me that pointed me in that direction. You may be driving sheep, and you shall wander to the city. Bucolic and open-mouthed shall wander under the intrepid guidance of the Spirit into the studio of the Master, and after a time he shall say, I have nothing more to teach you. And now you have become the Master, who did so recently dream of great things while driving sheep. And that vision, for me, that vision is a better world, a world where we are healthy. Because something in me has always said that we are living in a body that can heal itself. We are living in a regenerative world. And I've always seen it. And I had this vision where we would all live in harmony, in peace. And every time I saw another war being presented to me, that vision became stronger, and I would be able to say no to that and yes to the vision. And I know that before I leave this planet, that vision is becoming a reality within the communities that are being built all over this planet, these beautiful New Earth communities. It is becoming a reality, and we are all desiring peace, and we're saying no to anything less. You shall lay down the sword and the plane to take upon yourself the regeneration of the world. And I'm going to say that again. You shall lay down the sword and the plane to take upon yourself the regeneration of the world. We are there right now. Regeneration of the world. The thoughtless, the ignorant, and the indolent, seeing only the apparent effects of things and not the things themselves, talk of luck, of fortune, and chance. Seeing a man grow rich, they say, how lucky he is. Observing another become intellectual, they explain, how highly favored he is. And noting the saintly character and wide influence of another, they remark, how chance aids him at every turn. They do not see the trials and failures and struggles which these men have voluntarily encountered in order to gain their experience. And I can avow to that. They have made of the undaunted efforts they have put forth, of the faith they have exercised, that they might overcome the apparently insurmountable and realize the vision of their heart. They do not know the darkness and the heartaches. They only see the light and joy and call it luck. Do not see the long and arduous journey, but only behold the pleasant goal and call it good fortune. They do not understand the process, but only perceive the result and call it chance. In all human affairs, there are efforts and there are results, and the strength of effort is the measure of the result. Chance is not. Gifts, powers, material, intellectual, and spiritual possessions are the fruits of effort. They are thoughts completed, objects accomplished, visions realized. The vision that you glorify in your mind, the ideal that you enthrone in your heart, this you will build your life by. This you will become. Isn't that beautiful? And now we come to the end of this beautiful book. And the chapter is called Serenity. Because when we fulfill our visions, when we learn to live in alignment with our soul, then we acquire an inner peace and a bliss and a sense of being blessed and blessedness. That's where it lies, not by outside gratification. The outside gratification comes as a result of the inner peace, the inner serenity, the content mind and heart. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. A man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being. I love that word, a thought-evolved being. We are evolving out of our lower thinking. For each knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as the result of thought, and as he develops a right understanding and sees more and more clearly the internal relations of things by the action of cause and effect, he ceases to fuss and fume and worry and grieve, and remains poised, steadfast, and serene. The calm man, having learned how to govern himself, knows how to adapt himself to others, and they in turn reverence his spiritual strength and feel that they can learn of him and rely upon him. The more tranquil a man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, his power for good. Even the ordinary trader will find his business prosperity increase as he develops a greater self control and equanimity, for people will always prefer to deal with a man whose demeanor is strongly equable. A strong, calm man is always loved and revered. He is like a shade giving tree in a thirsty land, or a sheltering rock in a storm. Who does not love a tranquil heart, a sweet tempered, balanced life? It does not matter whether it rains or shines, or, well, now this is beautiful. I had not been aware, so that I had locked my cat, or she had locked herself into my office. I've locked the door so she can't get out. And she's been very good, but at the very end, she couldn't resist it anymore and had to be part of this ending. So, for those of you who haven't met her, this is Honey, one of my beautiful, beautiful creatures. And, she is actually a result of a vision I had. I always wanted a Burmese cat. But for years and years, the cats that came my way were all sorts, and they usually came because they would belong to my children, for my children. And of course, they've all left. And when it was my turn, when I was no longer with any beautiful feline, the opportunity came, and I finally got my vision. I got two beautiful Burmese cats. And this is the result of a vision I had a long time ago where I knew that I needed one of these. Well, that's an interesting interruption in this beautiful recording, isn't it? But because I am really in a serene state, I don't see this as an interruption. I just see this as a gift. So let's see, honey, where were we? The strong, calm man is always loved and revered. He is like a shade-giving tree in a thirsty land. I love that, and that is one thing that I do love about cats, because they are serene, they are calm creatures. Okay, it does not matter whether it rains or shines, or what changes come to those possessing these blessings, for they are always sweet, serene, and calm. That exquisite poise of character, which we call serenity, is the last lesson of culture. It is the flowering of life, the fruitage of the soul. It is precious as wisdom, more to be desired than gold, yea, than even fine gold. How insignificant mere money seeking looks in comparison with a serene life, a life that dwells in the ocean of truth, beneath the waves, beyond the reach of tempests, in the eternal calm. How many people who know, who sour their lives, who ruin all that is sweet and beautiful by explosive tempers, who destroy their poise of character and make bad blood. It is a question whether the great majority of people do not ruin their lives and mar their happiness by lack of self-control. How few people we meet in life who are well balanced, who have that exquisite poise which is characteristic of the finished character. Yes, humanity surges with uncontrolled passion, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown about by anxiety and doubt. Only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purifies, makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. That's very true. Tempest-tossed souls, wherever you may be, under whatsoever condition you may live, know this. In the ocean of life, the isles of blessedness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does not sleep. He does but sleep, he says. Wake him. Okay, so the commanding master sleeps as long as you are not in control of your thoughts. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace, be still. The end. Wow. Well, that is the end of this lovely book, As a Man Thinketh. And I have so enjoyed bringing this to you. And I do hope that you've enjoyed it and it has given you some thinking to do. It's given you some ways of looking at the way we think differently. It's given you some inspiration to become master of your ship, master of your thoughts, and take you to the visions that may still be unfulfilled within you. But if you have a vision or a desire, it's there for a reason. Give it flight. So thank you so much for being a part of my revisiting of this beautiful book. And I thank James Allen for writing it because it certainly has helped millions of people over the many, many years now. Over 1,000, in fact, 1,020 years later, I am still reading it. How wonderful is that? Now that is a vision fulfilled. So I thank you, and please leave your comments and let me know, and maybe I will find another one. If you would like me to, I would love to read some more for you in the weeks to come. So thank you so much for being on this journey with me, and we will see each other again very soon. Bye-bye.